Hi, ladies and gentlemen. So I decided to start a league playing some RG Eldrazi, but I played my first few games without my audio equipment. So I'm just going to do a kind of a rapid replay and go through the games quickly. Okay, so here we are on to game number 1, and let's do this. So I decided to mulligan, and I bottom the Obligator, drop myself a land, and I realize I'm playing against the green-blue Merfolk. So I drop my second land, and then I Ancient Stirring, grabbing myself a couple of Reshapers, double Ancient Stirrings, and he's got himself a Mistbinder. So he swings in for 3, but I'm feeling pretty confident right now. I have 3 lands, and so what I do is I toss down the Reshaper, and I'm feeling pretty good. But then he casts his Trickster and taps it, and he swings in for 5. So I'm like, that's not great. And casts a Curse Catcher, and so I was like, holy smokes. So I throw down a Temple, and I use my Temple to cast Bloodbraid Elf, and then I grab an Ancient Stirrings, and off of the Ancient Stirrings I grab another Obligator. So I wait, and then he throws down a Marrow card. He swings in, and I block. And then I get a land. So I'm down by 6. I grab another land, a Temple. So I have a few cards that I can play. So I cast a Reshaper, and I cast a Bloodbraid Elf. And I get a Hierarch off the Bloodbraid Elf. And I just decide to leave the turn. He casts another Rejoy and taps my critter. Got to master the Trident, so he's got lots of big critters, and I know I'm done. So I concede, and that was game 1. So now on to game number 2. So game number 2. I like what I got, so I throw down the Grove, deciding to keep the Lightning Bolt up instead of the Temple. He drops a Vial. We ship to the second turn. I throw down my Temple, wanting to get a turn 3 Thought-Knot. He casts another Vial, so I don't end up using my Lightning Bolt, which is sad. I cast myself my Thought-Knot Seer, at which point he decides to Vial in his Speaker. And I go for the Lord of Atlantis. So he decides to Spreading Seas my Grove, which I don't totally understand, but he's maybe hoping to cut me off from my elves. I throw my Cavern down on Elf, which makes my elves possible, and I get Abrade. Now, I use my Abrade to target the Aether Vial, but at this point he vials in a Silvergill Adept, and he vials in the Curse Catcher. He sacks the Curse Catcher, asking me to pay 1, which I don't do. So I'm just left with the Elf and the Thought-Knot, which I swing in for 7. He makes his Mutavault big. He vials in a Lord, so then he swings across for 9, so which is a fair chunk of change. I lay a land. I cast myself another Elf, and I get a Flame Slash. I use the Flame Slash to blow up the Lord. I drop the Elf, then I swing in for 10, and then I Lightning Bolt him dead. So that is game number 2. Game number 3 of RG versus Merfolk. Alright, so I decided to mull that, and I put that, I think, on top. If I recall, he casts his standard turn 1 Vial. I Temple, I do nothing. He casts a Silvergill Adept, revealing Curse Catcher. And I crack for Ancient Stirrings, and I grab myself the Reality Smasher. So now I got 2 Smashers, 2 Thought-Knots, which is a pretty good place to be. He swings in for 3, and I have enough for Thought-Knot next turn. So I Thought-Knot, and I believe I see that he's got Dismember. So I don't know why he didn't dismember me, but he lets me take it. And he keeps clicking on his vials. He doesn't attack because he doesn't want to lose anything. I decide to play it safe, and I Thought-Knot Seer again. And I find out that he's got nothing after he decides to vial in his Mistbinder. So I swing in for 4, and yeah, he takes the damage because I know he's not going to want to lose anything this early in the game. And so he keeps clicking up his vials, and he casts a Trickster, and he uses the Trickster to tap down my team. And then he swings in for aggressively for 7. So I cast a Hierarch as a blocker, and then I use this opportunity to cast a Smasher. I just attack with the Smasher for 6, and then I leave up the 2 blockers. I'm a little worried about him playing another Lord, but he doesn't. He's got a Sunspeaker, and he decides to do nothing. So then what I do is I cast the Reality Smasher. I crack, pull a red mana for the Abrade, and then I send in the team. It takes him a little while to do the math, but he eventually decides to do block like this. I then use the Abrade to blow up the Lord, which drops those Merfolk's health points by 1 apiece, allowing my Thought-Knot to kill them both. Now I lose the Thought-Knot, he gets a card, but he's now in a really terrible situation, and so he concedes the game. Moving on to game 2, I won this one also in 3. So game number 1. So game number 1 starts, I'd keep because who doesn't like double temple? He lays a Sacred Foundry and casts a Goblin Guide, and so I'm like, ah, crap, burn, I hate burn. Anyway, I'm prepared for the long slog, so I throw down the Matter Reshaper as a blocker, and I pass turn. He attacks in, and then I get my land, and I realize, and I block. He then casts this weird Trample card, which keeps his card alive, and I realize he's now playing some sort of a zoo deck, the Gore Rage or whatever it's called. So I grab myself an Obligator off my Ancient Stirrings, and I take another healthy 2 points of damage. He, at the end of the turn, casts his Hidden Herbalist, and this Renegade Death Touch guy, and this Curd Ape. So I'm feeling like I'm really far behind, but I get a top deck Thought-Knot, and I Thought-Knot, and I'm able to see what he's got, which turns out to be nothing. I then utilize the land to get a Hierarch, and I Ancient Stirrings, grabbing myself an additional blocker for next turn, and then I ship the turn. Now, he tries to get me to sack my Thought-Knot, which is stupid. I just block with my Hierarch. I lose my Hierarch, but I still have my Thought-Knot Seer. He's got 4 guys. So I drop my Cavern of Souls, and I start throwing down some critters, including this Bloodbraid Elf. Off the Bloodbraid Elf, I hit a Lightning Bolt. I use the Lightning Bolt to blow up the Death Touch guy. And now I've got 2 blockers, and I ship the turn. So he swings in with his team, and I decide now would be a good time to do some blocking. So I block the Curd Ape, and then the other guy, he uses the Lightning Bolt to get rid of my Thought-Knot Seer, drawing a card, and his end turn is a Burning Tree Emissary. So he's now got 2 creatures. I got no creatures, and I'm a little bit behind. So I decide to throw up a wall of blockers, which includes a Matter Reshaper, my Boreal Druid, and this Noble Hierarch. And we wait. He casts himself a Bushwhacker, but the Bushwhacker doesn't have Surge. I find I get another land, and so I decide to kill 2 of his critters with 2 of mine, and I top deck that Smasher. So now I got a Smasher and a Thought-Knot Seer. I'm able to cast both. I check first to see if he's got anything scary. He doesn't. I cast my Reality Smasher, and then I swing in for just 6, leaving up the blocker. So it's his turn. He's not able to really do much. I have an Obligator, so I use the first Obligator to steal his Burning Tree Emissary. It's not quite lethal, but I do have the other Obligator now in hand. So I cast that Obligator, which will be lethal. When he sees it, he quits the game, and I take the round. On to game 2. So in game 2, I like where I'm starting, so I keep my hand and cast a garden, and then one of those annoying death touch critters. I drop my temple and I wait. I've got a couple of blockers. I feel like I'm pretty confident, and yet things escalate quite quickly in this game. So it drops the Goblin Guide. He gets in. I get a land. I'm thinking, okay, no worries. What I'll do is I'll drop a Matter Reshaper as a blocker. He's got his Renegade. But then he paths my value town. I grab the card, but then he Bushwhackers. And his Bushwhacker comes in now for 11. And I'm just at too much of a deficit. Even though I've got some good cards and I can cast them, I've got one blocker. He's too wide, so I concede the game. Moving on to game 3. Final one in the match. So I have the play. I decide to keep with a 1 land, which was a bit of a risk, but then I Noble Hierarch, which gives me a 2nd mana if I need it. Because I know he's probably going to go Goblin Guide to begin with, which he does. And I'm hoping that the Goblin Guide will get me a land, but it doesn't. It shows me I think I have an Ancient Stirrings on the top. I do. So Ancient Stirrings, I grab a land, I throw down the land. I debate a little bit whether I should throw out the Reshaper, but I opt to leave the Bolt up. Instead, he attacks in, and I decide to bolt his critter. I get the land, though, off the trigger. And now I'm at 4. He's got his Death Touch guy. He blows up my Noble Hierarch, but now I've got 2 Thought-Knot Seer, so I Thought-Knot Seer the first time to see what he's got. And I decide Path to Exile is what scares me the most. I do notice a Deflecting Palm in there that I'm going to have to play around. So he swings in and I just take the 2 damage. I'm not too scared of that. He casts the Wild Nacatl. So then I Thought-Knot Seer again. So he uses this opportunity to cast the Atarka's Command to bump up his Nacatl, hoping I would attack. But I just take the palm and I decide to wait. So I try to Lightning Bolt his Renegade, but he uses a Boros Charm to keep it alive, which is kind of frustrating. So what I opt to do is drop the Reshaper, I drop the Hierarch, and I swing in for 5 with the trigger, knowing that he's going to take Thought-Knot Seer. So then he casts his Burning Tree Emissary at the end of his turn, and this Restless Bushwhacker, but he doesn't have the Surge to cost. So he's got 3 creatures, I got 3 creatures, and so we sit and we wait a little bit and we stare at each other. And then I cast this Crasher, and I use the Crasher to block his Nacatl with the Exert ability and swing in. Maybe he'll double block, but he opts to just lose the Bushwhacker. He takes the 4 damage. He Searing Bloods my Reshaper. I get a land, and now I'm down to 9. So he swings in for 5. I don't really want to take the damage, so I block the Nacatl with my Hierarch. I'm at 7, and I have a Thought-Knot. Now I have an Obligator. Use my Obligator, and I grab his Nacatl, and I take the opportunity to swing in for 5, getting our live totals closer, but leaving the Thought-Knot Seer up in case I need to block. Then I cast a Boreal Druid, and I just swing in with the Obligator. He chooses to take it. He drops me down to 3. With the Boros Charm, I cast a Hierarch, and then I swing in for 5. Now he has to block something, so he double blocks. He gets a card. And I grab a Smasher. And once I cast the Smasher, game over. And that is the games. That was game 3, right? Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the games, and I will record live the next one.